Greece stunned Portugal in 2004 to win their maiden Euro title. Portugal then stunned France in 2016 to win their first Euros. But before these upsets made the headlines, the Euros held in 1992 turned out to be one of the strangest tournaments ever. Football would drastically change in 1992 with the formation of the Premier League. But another change came in the form of a new rule that was deemed necessary after the Euro 1992 concluded. FIFA changed this rule due to Denmark's repetitive antics that were considered against the spirit of the game. Can you guess which rule this was? Let us know below and keep watching to find out. The story of the Danish campaign in 1992 starts at the qualification stage. Denmark failed to qualify for the Euros after Yugoslavia emerged victorious in their qualifying group. Back in 1992, only 8 teams would be picked for the final stage of the tournament, which implied Denmark missed out on qualifying after just 1 loss, 1 draw, and 6 wins in the group. Yugoslavia was the leader of Group 4 and was supposed to appear against the other 6 group winners, and the host nation Sweden in the Euro final last stage. Denmark came second, just a point behind the group leaders, but failing to qualify after an impressive campaign, a few Danes were already off to their summer vacation to blow off steam. In the backdrop of these matches, civil unrest was growing in Yugoslavia during the Yugoslav Wars. This Yugoslav squad was no joke either. They had won the U20 FIFA World Youth Championship in 1987 and a golden generation was taking shape. Stevan Jovanovic, Yugoslav and Red Star Belgrade goalkeeper, had heroically won the European Cup in 1991. Yugoslavia was supposed to be the team to watch out for at the Euros. Their talented squad had further ambition for the 1994 World Cup, but come to the end of May 1992, their dreams were crushed 10 days before the tournament started. The Yugoslavia squad had already reached Sweden, trying to get ahead of the rumours of an impending UN sanction. They had faced trouble arranging friendly matches as countries refused to engage with the political backdrop. On the 31st of May, they were asked to leave Sweden as they were no longer permitted to take part in the tournament. In fact, they were further exempted from the 1994 World Cup and the 1996 Euros. This sanction posed a new challenge to UEFA. Who would go through instead of Yugoslavia? The tournament was supposed to start in 10 days. The altruistic choice pointed to Denmark, who weren't just next in line to Yugoslavia in the group, but boasted the best record of all second-place teams. The stars aligned for the Danes, who were hurriedly called to assemble their squad in Sweden. Most of the players were already off for holidays, while a few Danish nationals were following the updates closely. One of the biggest Danish stars of the time, Barcelona striker Michael Laudrup, didn't pick up the call. 2 years before this, the Laudrup brothers, along with a few more prominent Danish stars, including Jan Molby, had fallen out with the coach Richard Møller-Nielsen. This was largely due to his tactical reliance on pragmatic defending to get results. A 21-year-old Brian Laudrup and his 26-year-old brother Mikael announced their intention to not participate in the national squad. Both attacking players felt that his tactics were too defensive. Fast forward to 10 days before Euro 92, Brian Laudrup gets the call from the Danish Football Association to join the squad in Sweden. Brian admitted in an interview later to being hesitant about joining for the fear of being ridiculed for returning, but the opportunity to represent his country in the Euros couldn't be taken lightly. The Danes would be grateful for this inclusion soon. A squad of 20 players was selected to compete in the Euro group stage. Henrik Larsson was also part of this group. They were pitted against the hosts Sweden, France, with a young Eric Cantona and 1991 Ballon d'Or winner Papin in attack, and lastly England with a young Alan Shearer. On short notice, the Danes made arrangements, tactical and administrative. Their sponsors were caught unprepared and kits were unavailable. In the first match against England, the Danes were forced to wear under 21 kits, which is why they appear tightly fit on many of the players in the game footage. The mood across the nation wasn't too expectant, neither was it ambitious in the locker room. They felt heavily unprepared and content thinking about playing the 3 group matches and returning for their summer holidays. Their biggest star, Michael Laudrup's absence, was also anticipated to be a huge miss. Brian Laudrup of Bayern Munich and Peter Schmeichel of Manchester United were the biggest international names in the squad, while a vast majority of players played within the country. They were up against the likes of a stacked Netherlands side, who were the favourites to defend their Euro title. They had Marco van Basten, Frank Rijkaard and Ruud Gullit in the ranks, a genuinely scary side to face. After the Berlin Wall fell a couple of years ago, East and West German players united in a single pool. The new German squad was the best of both and hoped to bring glory to their newly united nation. They had Rudi Völler, Jürgen Klinsmann and Matthias Sammer amongst other stars. A united Germany was considered a strong contender to capture an emotion-fueled title victory. England and France were expected to do well with their pool of talented teams. The first match against England ended in a goalless draw. After the match, there was a growing sentiment of "we could have won that." The underdogs were up against the hosts next. The match ended with Sweden managing a 1-0 victory, and with just one game left against France, Denmark were written off already. The only route to success on the last match week was for Sweden to beat England and Denmark to beat France. This was a very unlikely outcome, and the French side was already feeling confident about beating Denmark. In fact, their arrogant demeanor before kickoff was reportedly noticed by some Danes. They were fired up and wanted to stun French excellence. Henrik Larsson opened the scoring in the 8th minute, and a solid defensive display meant they led at half-time. In the 60th minute, Papin leveled the score and the Danes were looking shaky at the back. Lars Elstrup came off the bench in the 66th minute and scored the winning goal 12 minutes later. England had succumbed to a Swedish onslaught by 2-1. Another miracle had appeared for Denmark, as they had now scraped through to the semi-final somehow. They were to play the Group B leaders in 5 days, the Netherlands. Before we get to the knockouts, let's quickly dive into how the Danes were setting up. They were often criticised for their pragmatic approach in matches, but previous Danish sides had never won anything with their fluid attacking identity either. So Richard Møller Nielsen was given the keys to lead the team as he saw fit. Møller Nielsen set them up in a 3-5-2 formation. This would drop to a 5-3-2 out of possession with a no-nonsense outlook from the back five. At the first hint of winning possession, the defenders were instructed to send it long. Flemming Povelsen was the target man up top, who would be tasked with bringing the ball down and laying it off to Henrik Larsson or Brian Laudrup, as they possessed greater creativity and vision. Kim Vilfort in midfield was a key outlet in possession. Brian Laudrup and Henrik Larsson were heavily relied upon for their individual brilliance to score without too much offensive support to help them. Møller Nielsen put out a 4-5-1 in the semi-final against the Netherlands, but the major focus was on no-nonsense defending. They were also notorious for engaging in time-wasting antics if they found a lead in any game. They were happy to sit on a single-goal lead. Denmark had barely scraped through to the knockouts, and reigning Euro champions Netherlands were expected to steamroll past them. The Dutch defence had Frank de Boer, Ronald Koeman and Van Tigelen as the back three. The front two was 3-time Ballon d'Or winner Marco van Basten and Brian Roy. Ruud Gullit, Dennis Bergkamp and Frank Rijkaard started in midfield. The match started, and within 5 minutes, Brian Laudrup set up Henrik Larsson to make it 1-0 for Denmark. The Dutch were rightfully shocked, but their consistent attacking led to Dennis Bergkamp levelling the scorelines in the 23rd minute. 10 minutes later, Henrik Larsson bagged a brace in spectacular fashion from outside the box to make it 2-1 in favour of the Danes. Denmark defended bravely and wasted as much time as possible with the lead in hand. An infuriating method for this was passing the ball back to Schmeichel, who would then pick it up and take his time to redistribute it. In fact, this antic was the very reason that FIFA introduced the back pass rule after the Euros. The rule stated that a goalkeeper wasn't permitted to handle the ball if it was intentionally passed to him by a teammate. As the Netherlands continued to send waves of attack, Denmark almost held them off in the second 45 minutes. But with just 4 minutes to go, Frank Rijkaard managed to scrape a goal through, and the game went to extra time. After a goalless 30 minutes of extra time, penalties were next. The Danish side had quiet confidence in Peter Schmeichel for the penalty shootout. Koeman scored, followed by Henrik Larsson, levelling it at 1-1. Arguably the greatest finisher in the world at the time, Marco van Basten, was up next. He went for the bottom right corner, and the looming figure of Schmeichel guessed right. He saved the penalty, and the Danish penalty takers to follow had a massive pressure lifted off them. Every subsequent taker scored their penalty, and Denmark went through to the Euro finals. The other semi-final saw host Sweden getting knocked out at the hands of Germany after a 3-2 victory. The final stage was set for Germany to take on Denmark. On the 26th of June 1992, Denmark dared to dream one last time. The German side was again back to end this fairy tale run that Danes were on. Even though they had proven how resolute they were throughout the tournament, Denmark was heavily expected to miss out against the Germans. A 3-5-2 setup for Moller Nielsen was mirrored in the German ranks. The match started with a flurry of German attacks which tested Peter Schmeichel's talent again and again. Midfielder John Jensen was able to capitalize on a turnover near outside the German half and scored the first goal of the day. It was an absolute belter from outside the box. This was all the Danes needed to defend with determination and an incentive to protect a lead. Schmeichel made tremendous saves that day, and Denmark went into halftime with a single goal advantage in hand. The Danes exploited the back pass loophole beyond anticipation that day. Most of the set pieces in their half would be passed back to Schmeichel, who would pick it up and let the clock tick away. Denmark held on tight, and in the 78th minute, Kim Vilfort took two defenders on, twisted them inside out before shooting from the edge of the box. The ball rolled past the German keeper, hit the inside of the post, and went in. The scenes were extraordinary as the Danes jumped over each other and the fans erupted into celebration. They held on for another 15 odd minutes before the final whistle was blown. The Danish flags in the crowd flew high as the fairy tale came to a satisfying conclusion. Peter Schmeichel and Brian Laudrup were the only Danes included in the team of the tournament. UEFA started handing out Player of the Tournament awards in 1996, but they later unofficially listed Peter Schmeichel as the winner in 1992 on their website. The underdogs, who weren't even supposed to be at the tournament, had managed to upset the biggest contenders on their way to making history. They beat previous Euro champions Netherlands and the World Cup title holders Germany to lift their first major trophy. Do you think this is the greatest international underdog campaign, or did the Greece 2004 story seem even more unlikely? Let us know in the comments below.